listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is James Payne, and today I've got Chris Perez back in the studio with me. Thanks for coming over there, good buddy.
Heck yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. How you been? What you been up to?
Oh, dude, fall projects.
Yup.
Doing all the stuff I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And trying to plan ahead all at the same time.
Pushing all the things we do want to do off so we can try and beat the snow, which is here for anybody in the lower 48 that's listening. We've, what do you think we got out there right now? 3-4 inches, something like that?
I don't know quite that, but if it keeps going, we're definitely going to be there.
Yeah, maybe 2 or 3. I'm trying to look at the top of the shed over there. But
I'm getting to the point where I'll be able to ride the tundra over here.
Dude, and especially if this...
I can't wait.
If this storm comes to fruition.
Yeah, that'll be next week.
Ooh, buddy. Yeah, we're going to be diving headfirst into snow machine season.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I got to go pick up the one I'm using this year and then try to get out. And we're going to try and run the trap line tomorrow, which would be yesterday from the time this comes out. And see what we can do as far as like just checking things and maybe getting a little bit of preemptive setup done.
Clear some stuff up.
Yeah, clear some stuff up, get some stuff out that might, get hooked on the skis or damage anything. But no, it's fun. We'll see if the wheelers can get in there. I don't know if it's quite deep enough out there for the machines yet, but we're going to give it our darndest,
We started tearing into the boat yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
winterizing it?
Well, no, I was gonna winterize it, and then my buddy, him and I got on the phone, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you do what I know you're not gonna do when I'm busy next spring, and why don't you get that thing over here and we'll tear it down?
Oh,
we're gonna do all that work to it that we were talking about doing." And
yes, sir.
It's hard to do that kind of stuff right now.
It is.
It's hard to be thinking about boat stuff when it's time to think about
it's
predator
snow time
hunting and trapping and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got that thing over there. We started getting into it, so
nice.
We're gonna pull all the rigging off and.
Well, and I mean, right now is the time to do it. Like, there's no way you want to be doing that in the springtime. And so many people do wait till the springtime to focus on those things.
No, I want to be ready to go.
Exactly.
And he gave me the little, he broed me out and gave me the little pep talk. He's like, we're going to rip that boat apart. Nice. I was like, yes, sir. So that's
it's going to look really bad, but then it'll look really beautiful.
Oh, it's
just don't freak out. Trust the process.
It's going to be a lot better for what we do with it next spring.
I'm excited.
It'll be ready to go too.
Yeah.
It's
those mods you were telling me about. That's exciting stuff, dude.
Yep. It's going to be set up for what we do. And it, like I say, it's a hard commitment because I want to direct energy to other things right now, but that's that thing too. You always feel good when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just pull that thing out and be ready. And yeah, now I remember why I was doing this in October, right?
Right, exactly.
My wife kind of looked at me yesterday like, "You're doing what?"
Mm-hmm.
I didn't quite get the blessing I was hoping for. I was like, James will be happy.
I am happy for you, buddy. I am happy.
I'm going to haul Carson out too next spring. And I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, we're going to get some mods done on this thing. And he don't know what I'm talking about. He's like, whatever, dude. Like, yeah, do it, man.
Does it help get me on fur? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. No, it'll be cool.
Yeah, that's sick. He's been doing good too. He was cleaning house earlier this year.
Yeah, I think he hung it up. He's getting some ice there.
Oh, yeah. It's hard. It's hard to keep your steel in the water when ice is setting. And it's been so unpredictable the last couple of days. That's what made the road so bad, was that freeze thaw, everything. I mean, good night for 2 days. I think I tried stopping at the stop sign down here, or the stoplight down at the bottom of the hill.
Oh, yeah.
Like 5 miles an hour, broke traction. Like, couldn't believe it. Like, and I've got good tires on that truck.
Dude, welcome to the hood. Wait till you start seeing, like, where you were before. Some weird stuff went down. Wait till you're going to start seeing some crazy stuff, dude. It's rowdy around here in the winter.
I bet.
Oh yeah. You guys are going to keep your camera handy, dude.
Yeah.
It'll be worth it.
Well,
that weird stuff.
That poor, what was it, that SUV down there at the bottom of the hill? Man, dude, that one was gnarly.
I didn't even see that one.
Yeah, they got a bunch of caution tape around it now, but it might have been pulled out already by the time.
Is that the one on University right there?
Yeah. Or like right by Farmers Loop area.
Because there was one that was on University that
I think it's over there by the bow range. It's like all the way in the tree line. It's crazy.
Yeah. It went over the bike path.
Yeah. Like, I hope everybody was all right on that one. That was
Dude, people just do
Like-
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
People just check out at the wheel, man, when it's like,
Well, I caught myself doing that the other day.
Yeah.
I drove all the way to Mentasta yesterday for work, and I was driving back, and it's just you catch yourself doing that autopilot thing, like just cruising, and all of a sudden there's a steep corner coming up, which in the summertime's no big deal. I got a nice handling truck and everything like that, and man, when she starts kicking sideways a little bit, it's
dude, we're getting those.
ups the pucker factor a little bit.
Oh yeah, we're getting those like warmer intros to winter too. It feels like, and maybe we're not. It just seems that way in the last like, I'm going on 17 years of playing this game.
Yeah.
Now. It's so much warmer now than it used to be this time of year.
Well, and it seems like it's kind of a more gradual step into summer. Like it used to be, you got 1 to 2 weeks of fall, is what I remember.
You mean into winter?
Or into winter, sorry, yeah. So like it would go like from 50s,
Oh yeah,
and then all of a sudden you'd get like 1 or 2 weeks.
There was
and
no
all the leaves
transition.
would fall,
yeah.
and then boom, 0 degrees. And you're
Yeah.
like, what? What?
Like now we actually
hold on.
get fall here.
I know, it's kind of nice actually.
Dude, you know what's
Um,
crazy is all like mom and dad, I'll be rapping with them sometimes throughout winter, and like we'll have better weather than they do.
Oh yeah,
Like
100%.
And I have actually seen where, I mean, dude, multiple times. We'll check in on it this winter,
Mhm.
just for the heck of it. Dude, it'll be colder there than it is here. I mean, all the time.
we saw that a couple times where my wife's from in Michigan.
Yeah.
That where it was colder there than it was up here, or they had more snow than we did, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
it's insane, like to think about, but no, it's, I don't know. We got a kind of a rude awakening to winter driving. I'll tell you that, with that freeze and thaw cycle. But
Yeah,
but
it's not fun.
yeah. But that goofs up driving, goofs up trapping. So yeah, I was talking to him yesterday, Carson there, and we were rapping about getting into predator hunting, and gearing up for that, which is what we're going to talk about today. Today's main topic, just for anybody that was curious, we're not just here to
babble.
yammer on about nothing.
We're not the weather guys.
Which is funny because I think that's actually the conversation that sparked yours and I's friendship, like years and years ago on a job site.
What's
Was
that?
talking predator hunting and cartridges and bullets and ballistics and tactics and all that crap. I think we were, because I showed up to trim out a house and you were upstairs doing it, and
I was doing flooring.
yeah, you were doing the flooring in the house.
I was like, dude, I was like, this redneck. You're like, yeah, I got a 22 250, and I'm gonna do this and this, and I'm like, this guy's crazy, man. Like, long hair, big old beard. I'm like, you know what? This guy's cool. Like, he's I don't know that I like know about his game plan here, but
Right.
this guy's all right.
Yeah, he's motivated.
We start talking. Yeah, he's motivated. That's the first part to anything.
Exactly.
No, dude. Then every time we run into each other, we were wrapping up. I'm like,
Yes, sir.
I'm like, Jay's got the bug like I do. Heck yeah.
Yep. No, I can't sit around in the wintertime, man. I got a new snowsuit back there, a neg 50 rated.
Dude, that thing's sweet. When I walked in here, I was eyeing that up.
Yeah, I'm not being cold this year. I refuse. Not going to allow it.
Dude, Carson's been like picking my brain, and it's got me going on a bunch of stuff too. And I kind of been doing things the way I've been doing them for a while, So like he'll ask me some questions, and I don't want to give him bad advice. So some of the stuff I'm like, I'm not really up on that, dude. I've been rocking like the same stuff for a little bit. Like,
Right.
he's kind of got me like looking into stuff again and looking at some of the newer gear, and he's been a good source for me venting my predator hunting stuff to somebody.
There's an aspect I found at different jobs. So I've been like crew leads and tech leads and stuff like that for different jobs, different companies and things like that. And there was one crew. I'd worked for this company for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at this point, and they appointed me lead tech over a whole crew, right? I had, I don't know, 6 or 7 guys working under me. And it wasn't like an authority position necessarily, but like a make sure things run smoothly kind of position. Yeah, guidance, do the scheduling, the routes, and everything like that. And I never learned more than when I was responsible for teaching other people. Like, it was insane, because I kind of like what you just said, like about how you've just been running the same gear and you figured out what works for you and you're running it and this, that, the other. And that's how I was with that job. is I figured out the way I like to do things and what worked for me and what was fast, and I just cruise. And then other people would run into problems that I maybe hadn't seen before or anything, and it's like, oh, that's a good question. Let me look into that. And like in 1 year, I learned way more than I did in like the 3 or 4 prior to that.
Yeah, we're
Like-
always like in that constant state of like technological advancement too lately. It seems like we're going through a phase where every time you turn around, there's a new solution to a new product, a new solution to this, a new way to do that. Like I feel like you can get tangled up in some of that too, because I think there's a lot of marketing in that. But I definitely run across some cool products lately.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even like being friends with Carson and rapping all the time. I mean, dude, we just go on and on and on about this stuff. But and he's like a gear nerd. Well, like a hunting clothing nerd, right? So we're always talking about all this new stuff and just things I never knew about. You know, that whole predator hunting topic usually gets us going on. And I've learned. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I'm not using now from just talking to him. And
so on the topic of new whiz bang gear coming out and all that stuff, you know, like new technologies and advancements and all of that. One of our sponsors, Troy Sessions with the 60-inch club, he's got a couple inventions under his belt, and he's starting a whole new kind of avenue of media to put out there to try and help even more of that stuff come about. And so he's got a new book he just put out called Invent. It should be available everywhere. Last time I talked to him, I've got a copy of it digitally that I've been reading. And we're going to have him on the show to talk about it. But he's, just to plug an episode that's coming up, he's going to come on and tell people if you got any ideas on how to, improve the hunting experience, improve gear you'd like to see used. Maybe you've been using the same stuff, or you've been using a bunch of different stuff and nothing works. He's going to tell you how to actually make that happen, turn it into reality. Maybe you can make a little coin doing the same thing. But look forward into that
ideas.
episode. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, good night. You do something long enough, you're bound to have some ideas.
I've got a couple up my sleeve.
Yeah.
You just don't know how to deliver it, right? Or give it to somebody else for free.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the good thing with this book. I mean, for anybody that wants to read it, I mean, it is available for purchase and everything. And he draws back the curtains on the whole industry. I mean, how to like design stuff, how to get stuff put into production, like how to build a business. It's a pretty cool book. It's really nice. Like I said, we'll have him on here in the next couple weeks to break that down and kind of go over that, and then also talk about, you know, some more hunting stuff and fishing stuff and whatnot. So, while I'm on the topic of announcements, I figured I might as well drop this here. I mentioned 2 episodes ago that the African PH, professional hunter that owns Winterberg Safaris, which is the group that I went over to South Africa with this last spring, is coming to do his U.S. tour. So he's coming to a lot of different places. He's going to hit some California areas, some East Coast areas, some Midwest areas, but along his stops, he's going to come up here and hang out with all of us in Fairbanks. He'll be up here. The exact dates are up in the air as far as like what flights are available and stuff like that, but he's pretty dang sure it's going to be the last week of November. And he's going to come on the show. We'll have him and Sean Porter on to talk about global outdoors and Winterberg Safaris and all of the opportunities that they can help you guys set up if you'd like to go over. We're at some point going to plan another trip over there for sure. So, you know, we'll keep the details on that rolling as soon as we get them. But we're also going to do a meet and greet here in Fairbanks. So anybody that is listening in Fairbanks or can be in Fairbanks, if you're listening from the Anchorage area or anywhere else in the state, he'll be here. We're going to meet up at the Red Fox sometime within that last week of the of November, and we got the approval to use that area, and we just have to figure out exactly what date he's going to be here, and then we'll drop the official date. But if that'd be something you're interested in, we're just gonna, you know, rap about hunting and going over to Africa and international hunting. I mean, he's done, you know, I mean, Sean's gone all over the world hunting and stuff like that, and there's a reason he keeps going back to South Africa, and there's a reason I'm going to keep going back to South Africa. It's because it's just an absolutely beautiful place with beautiful animals, and it was a phenomenal experience. So if you're interested in something like that and you want to talk to the PH directly about what, you know, animals are offered and what kind of things he can help you do, it's going to be an awesome meet and greet. So Red Fox, last week in November, official date to be announced in probably 1 or 2 episodes. Then we'll have all the final details. But that's what I got so far.
Nice.
So,
It always seems like looking at your pictures and talking to you about South Africa seems like there's like you go there to hunt, but there's so many more opportunities than just hunting.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like it seems like you guys did a lot of stuff there that we weren't all really well aware of, right? Like,
yeah. Well, and that is the awesome part about it, and it's, you could almost equate it to, it's like a hot Alaska, like, because we flew into Joburg first, Johannesburg, and big city, right? I mean, it's many, many times the size of Anchorage, but you could just equate it to Anchorage, right? Like that's the big city. And then we flew from there to Port Elizabeth, which it's much bigger than Fairbanks, but you could equate that to Fairbanks. And then from there, we drove like 2 hours out into the middle of nowhere. And we're just passing these little towns and villages and like getting out to this farm or big ranch. It's hard to call it a ranch. It's like, I forget how many thousands of hectares it was, but it was insane. Like, I mean, we drove around for days and every dirt road we were on was still on this property. I think we only had to go off the property for springbuck and that was about it. So
that's
like,
crazy.
It's so many animals and they're all wild. Like they're not fenced in or anything like that. They just live on the property. And it's not, they have high fences along the highway to try and keep like kudu and whatnot from running across the roads. And, anybody who lives in Alaska has seen what happens when you hit a moose. Well, kudu are pretty big. They're not moose big, but they're pretty big. They're like elk big. And, so they have high fencing along the highways to try and avoid accidents, but all like the farm fencing and all that stuff, they can hop right over it. It's just for cattle, so, but no, there's so many different opportunities, dude. I mean, they have like farmers markets over there, which is like their standard markets for over there. But for us, we call them farmers markets, but it's the same concept. People would bring like biltong, which is just, like air dried jerky, basically. You'd have all kinds of fruits, all kinds of, produce that's over there. And that's kind of the cool thing about that climate is they're just constantly growing this stuff. It's just all the time. They're growing crazy amounts of fruits and all this other stuff. So we passed through this citrus farm. It was awesome. Like just this massive citrus
Probably
farm.
Smelled awesome.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And then, we went down, we drove 2 hours one direction to go shark fishing.
Yeah.
Off a beach.
Dude, that's what I was stoked on. I was like, you and I were talking and you were like, you showed me something like, wait, dude, what?
Yeah.
I thought you guys were hunting.
Oh yeah. Whole package, man. And then, so yeah, we went down there and spent a whole day on the beach catching sharks, like big sharks too.
That's
I mean,
sick.
Longer than this table. Some of them were.
What kind?
I think they're called ragged tooth is what their official name is. They're ragged tooth sharks. There's a couple different names for them, but one of them actually had like a biologist tag on it, and then got the data off that.
That's
and, like, turned it in
crazy.
and like got like found the official weight that it was when it was tagged versus there's like a calculation you can do with the length and everything and figure out how much it weighs now. And it was pretty wild to find that information out.
Does anyone retain those things like for food, or they just catch and release?
You
kind of
can.
thing?
So legally you can keep them, but we didn't keep any. And I don't know if maybe they're just not good eating or it's too hard to preserve during like the drive and all of that. And we weren't set up to keep the meat. But from what I understand, you can keep them to eat if you want to. So, but we were just doing all catch and release. I caught, I want to say 3 total throughout the day. But then it was just everybody at some point in time was was hooked on.
And was that all you guys were getting?
We got one other. I was trying to think the name of the other shark I got. It was itty bitty, teeny tiny little thing. I mean, it was like maybe 2 feet long. I mean, so compared to the other sharks we were catching. But I almost want to say they called it like a pajama shark or something like that. Like it literally looked like it had pajamas on. Like the way the stripes were and the colors and everything like that. I don't know the official name. Maybe that was just a local nickname.
Some slang.
But, yeah, but for the most part, yeah, all we caught was the ragged tooth. There were like 2 different breeds of shark that typically hang out in that reef. But from what I understand, the way that the currents and there was like a storm coming up the day before, and they kind of expected that it wasn't going to be. We were probably only going to catch ragged tooth, and that's exactly what happened. Because of the way the cold water currents were and stuff like that. So and that's the other thing is like these pHs. We were hunting and fishing with Defin and Ricky, and that duo, man. Ricky, I think, is an independent PH, so he works for different outfits all over the state.
What's
Or
PH?
all over.
What's PH stand for?
Professional hunter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he lives somewhere else other than where Deffin's from.
So is PH
And-
sort of a different term for like guide?
Yeah, basically. That's
Is
what they
that
call
kinda-
guides.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So instead of calling them guides, they just call them PHs.
Okay.
Yeah. Professional hunters. Yep.
I'm gonna
And-
just start calling Alaska guides that.
he's
He's a PH.
He's a PH.
I thought he was a hunting guide.
I'm so confused. He is. Yeah. So Ricky works independently, so he kind of bounces around for different outfits and different things like that. But he was like, great. Both of them, I mean, they understood not only the animals' movements, but like what kind of animals were in the area. They put us on really good like there was one time we were looking at an impala, and we worked on stalking this impala for a while. And Ricky tells us, he's like, he's kind of hemming and hawing. I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, it's a trophy. He's like, if you want it, it's a trophy. He's like, but there's bigger ones. There's better trophies.
That's awesome.
Like, and just the fact that it wasn't like, oh, there's a trophy, go ahead, bag it, like get out of here. Like I made my money.
a fact to be done with you, right? Like
Right.
just like it's nice when someone puts that extra time in and you spent that money on anything.
Yeah, he was like, oh yeah, we can get you a better one, and he did. Like we got a two very nice trophy impala out there. So me and my wife both took one, and it was a great experience, but same thing with the sharks. We originally were supposed to go out on a boat and fish off of a boat for all kinds of different species, but then with the way that the water was, the currents and the storm rolling in, they kind of like already knew the fishing wouldn't be great where they were trying to go, and like shifted gears to beach shark fishing and took us right to the right spot, right to the right time, the right everything. People were finding out how many sharks we were catching, and they were astounded, like, because it was just that good. I mean, literally shark after shark after shark. And these guys are phenomenal what they do.
That's pretty cool.
So, this is not like, this isn't just like some random PH. This is like, you are going to, if you go with these guys, you're going to get what you're after. Biggest possibility, right? Obviously, you're buying a hunt, you're buying an experience. You can't ever guarantee anything. I don't want to make it sound like that, but these guys know what they're doing.
If you're going to do it,
experienced.
if you're going to take the risk, these are the guys you want to go with. Sounds like
they're locals. They've been doing this their entire lives. Like nothing's new to them. So, and it's really an awesome experience. And we were on a lodge on this ranch, but that was just the package we had. They go all over South Africa. They go all over pretty much any animal you want to hunt, anywhere you want to hunt, as long as it's within the country, they can do it. So, you don't have to do just like a plains game package like we were doing. You could do dangerous game. You could do anything as long as it's legal and in South Africa. They might even be able to go out of there. I don't know. I don't know how all that works as far as the country borders and stuff like that goes, because we're all state operated here, right? So states are a little different than countries. But no, it'll be a good time, and you'll get to talk to them directly and verify everything I'm telling you. But my personal review, it was a great time. And one other thing I didn't mention is we spent an entire day, me and my wife, and then Sean and his wife, boogied out for a day and went to an elephant national park and just watched elephants all day. And like we saw, all kinds of other animals too, like
sick.
Zebras and wildebeest and all kinds of stuff. And like, dude, it was crazy. Like, hundreds of elephants.
This is a thing you could like talk your wife into.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you
could.
ask your wife if she wants to go like moose hunting. You're probably not going to get a big response there. But like, that sounds like you could get into some different stuff going on a trip like that.
Well, and we were, I was laughing about that one day when we'd come home in the evening time, and we were sitting around the fire, and the thing is, like, when you go on one of these trips, and if you are going to a lodge like we were, your food's included, your bedding's included, they've got showers, unlimited drinks. Like the one we were at had a pool, so when it was 125 degrees outside, we could just jump in the pool. But I was sitting there, and they can offer varied experiences too. So like my wife and I hunting with Ricky, we told him, it's like, hey, we are hunters from Alaska. Like, we hunt. I'm not looking to shoot animals out of the back of the truck. Like, I want to stalk things. I want to see something from the distance, work my way in, like work the wind. Like, I want the experience of the hunt, and He's like, yeah, absolutely. And this guy's in insane shape, and he's, just could hike all over these mountains all day long. And but that's exactly what we did. And so every animal we shot, for the most part, was stalked on foot, spotted from a distance, glassing it up, stalking in, like a proper hunting experience. But they also have setups where if let's say you're not in the greatest shape, or you have an injury where you can't hike a lot, maybe your knees all busted up, or your hips are bad, or something like that, right? Like something, whatever the case is. If
they can accommodate a hunt for that.
Oh yeah, they have, like, in their truck beds, they have bench seats with shooter's rails. Like, you can literally, like, go still have the experience, smell the fresh air, be out in the sun, like, get on these animals. Like, they can accommodate any level of person, whatever your case may be, right? And so yeah, definitely, if you can be in the Fairbanks area at the Red Fox at the date I'll give you in the next episode or two, but it will be the last week of November. It'll be worth your time. If you are at all interested in hunting Africa, it'll be worth your time. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Hammer Bullets produces what we at the Northern Hunter consider to be the most premium and best working monolithic bullets on the market today. These bullets are easy to load, extremely accurate, and best of all, they're always in stock and ready to ship. The guys at Hammer designed them so that after penetrating the hide of an animal, it sheds its petals, initiating a massive energy dump while retaining the rear shank for maximum penetration. These bullets are built with 100% focus on how they perform on game, and their proprietary designs produce great BCs with specialized pressure grooves for amazing inherent accuracy and speed. They have a minimum expansion velocity of 1,800 feet per second, which allows for long-range shots, but with no maximum velocity, making them perfect for every cartridge from your granddaddy's old 30-30 to the high-velocity round like the Weatherby 30-378 without having to worry about your bullet failing. To view their expansive selection and find the perfect match for your hunting needs, go to hammerbullets.com and use discount code TheNorthernHunter to drop the hammer on your next adventure.
Alrighty, so let's get into our main topic for today. So a little bit about predator hunting, but maybe not from the angle everybody expects. I know you brought up, you've been getting a lot of questions about gear, clothing, things like that. Mostly just how to get kitted out for something like this. So rather than spending a whole lot of time kind of redundantly talking about other stuff that we've really already talked about on the show, which we will obviously double back on at some point, let's talk more about gear. But to start off, the seasons that you can really do this. I mean, a lot of people like predator hunting because for most of the state, it's a very, very long season compared to pretty much any other hunting season we have in the state. Maybe aside from deer. Deer's a pretty long season too. But you can predator hunt in the interior legally for, 4 months? Something like that. Like
long enough to quit and stir it up again.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember you telling me that. You're like, yeah, it's long enough you can quit 3 times and start again 3 times. And
Yep. Ask me how I know.
Yep. But the regs book, if anybody doesn't have a copy, all the regs in the trapper's book apply to predator hunting. It's all considered under the same thing. You have to have a trapper's license to do predator hunting. You have to adhere to all of the trapper's regs as far as bag limits, areas, seasons opening, seasons closing, things like that. Keep an eye out, obviously, for emergency closures. It's unlikely, but it has happened in the past. So make sure you're educated. Make sure you have one of those books. And they break it down really easily. Like if you look at the one for, if you scout through it, and you'll find, like I have a PDF saved of the ones that are important to me. And one of those obviously is around our area, right? So interior/Northeast Alaska is the way the book breaks it down. Has a ton of different units in there. And then as you scroll through there, it breaks it down species by species by species with the units and the dates and the limits. Very easy to read. You should keep a paper version of this on you at all times, maybe even a PDF version to keep on your phone at all times. And that way you can reference it no matter where you're at. Because I think I was telling you about it last week. One reason I started doing this is I drive a lot for work, right? And I drive a lot for my personal life in general. Put more miles than I care to admit on that nice little truck I've got out there in the short amount of time that I've had it. And when you're driving between units, obviously your dates change and your rules change and stuff like that.
You're
and that's
crossing regulations constantly.
Yeah, and that's where it's nice when you're driving. And let's say, like in the instance I was in, I was in an area where I didn't have my phone service available, and I was scrambling to try and find my paper version because I wasn't actually on a hunting trip. I just had my rimfire with me, and I knew I wasn't in any of my home units where I was, and I happened upon this carcass on the side of the road that had a fox on it, and it was after fox was closed here, but it was open there. And I was trying my best to double check that. And by the time I dug out my regs book from being buried in all my other gear back there, it was too late. It was already gone. So don't do that. Don't make that mistake. Have it handy. Have it, saved on your phone to where you don't need data to look it up and everything like that. Keep it in the front compartment of your truck. And you won't miss opportunities like that. So, because you never know what might run into you. But you and I were just having an interesting conversation, and we've had this conversation several times before about the difference between legal shooting season and, I don't know if you want to call it ethical shooting season or just, we'll just call it what it is, optimal, primed shooting season. So the rest of this episode, I'm kind of just going to turn over to you, honestly, because you have a lot of... I was
hoping you wouldn't do that.
You have a lot of the experience that's, and you have a lot of the questions that people have been posing to you and what the public curiosity is and all of that. But as far as the seasons go that are optimal for shooting in your decades of experience doing this, what is...
I don't have decades. Well, we're getting there.
We're getting there.
To make me sound old here.
What's your recommendation to the folks?
I don't know. You're talking about fur primeness?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't have a recommendation, but I have my own kind of guideline that I operate under. And it always seems to vary region to region. So there's that.
Like south central, southeast, interior.
There's certain places that fur's only going to get so good.
Right.
And if you wait, you're waiting for nothing. I mean, in like some of those south central areas, some of the islands, some of that stuff, it's only going to get so good. And it varies region to region. I know you had Harrison on here, and I was listening to that, and I agreed with a lot of what he had to say about wait until December for a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
And that's not to say you can't go out and harvest some stuff that's in good shape like mid-November.
Right.
But it's still kind of early in my opinion. And I know there's tons of people that disagree with that, and I'm into that.
Yep.
Me personally, I don't really start chasing fur too much till December 1st.
Yeah.
There is the off chance I've seen where stuff starts getting pretty primed up. Mid-November, end of November.
Okay.
I've also seen where you're not really seeing that till like December, mid-December. I've seen cats where they're not primed up till mid-December.
Yep.
And that's rough to sit around and wait for that.
It is.
I mean, you're just like, for like a guy like me, you're sitting on needles and pins just every single day.
Well, especially when you're looking outside and there's plenty of snow, you can get on the machine and it's still not blisteringly cold outside yet. It'd almost be enjoyable to be out there. But because it's not blisteringly cold and super dark all the time yet, that ergo means the fur's not probably primed as it could be. And I think it was we had Carl on that one episode we were talking about, and it's the daylight cycles and all that stuff. So,
light is sort of the signaling factor to the brain to start priming.
Right.
The days getting shorter, and it's not so much weather related.
Right. Because they wouldn't be able to adjust fast enough.
And I'm sure there's probably like some food, like some nutritional consumption in there that kind of attributes to like fur growth and different things, right? And hide prime, but that's pretty much all the evidence leads to. That's a daylight factor that attributes to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's true of trapping and predator hunting, where like you pointed out with Harrison talking about the late season trappers. I've known guys like that don't even set until the week before Christmas like late December. And it's not that there's not animals out there, but they would rather wait until they're going to get the highest dollar amount, or even if they're not trying to sell it, they get the highest, fur quality for their own, say, like for me, my wife's trying to get into fur sewing.
Yep.
Right. So I gotta stack them up this winter, no matter what. And she's not giving me an option, guys.
Don't come home.
And, but so, we're not really trying to sell. We're not taking anything to auction, but like, I need to bring her something that she can make hats out of, or make little kid shoes out of, or make, whatever she's trying to make out of them. And you can't do that if it's not primed, and if you do, it's not going to be, it's not going to be the quality that you want.
Anything's workable and has value. I mean,
sure.
But why not? I mean, those are things you're going to keep around. Why would you not have that in the best condition possible?
Exactly. Yep. And so, and I think you're right.
It's just like you're not going to go shoot a fish bear in August that's got bald patches all over it that stinks, right? Like a cannery,
Yeah, that ain't no lie.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And and you want to get out. It's so hard not to get out once you know that you can. But I think having a little, and whatever, that's going to be to each person's own discretion, but having a little bit of self-discipline to maybe use some of that time to get into to shooting, and not shooting off a bench, and doing some other more important things, going through gear, and kind of using that time to get set up for when the bell really rings, right?
Yeah. Make sure you got your gear dialed.
When it's the final round.
Yeah.
It matters.
Yep. Well, and that's important too, because, and we can talk about this either in this episode or wait for a whole nother episode to talk about specifically this topic, but like weaponry for predator hunting, I mean, that's easily a 2 to 3 hour episode we could do just on that, based on conversations you and I have had over the phone, that have lasted honestly much longer than that. But yeah, always fun. Always
driving to Glen Allen.
Yeah.
Let's have a caliber talk.
Yeah. But, making sure you're dialed, making sure you have your zero set for the temperature and the environment you're going to be in, because powders act differently at different temperatures. You're going to get different velocities. You're going to get different, if you zeroed your 22 mag or whatever you're shooting at 60 degrees on a nice summer day, and you think you're just going to pull it out of the case and it's going to be ready to shoot when it's negative 20, maybe. A big maybe. But realistically, I mean, just like in any other case, like we talk about with moose, we talk about with caribou, we talk about with just about anything, is don't shoot at distance you've never shot before, and don't shoot without knowing your rifle is dialed, right?
Yep.
Why would you go hunt if you haven't zeroed your rifle and if you haven't shot it in the last month, right?
Something I think that's worth mentioning is and I'm no ballistics expert. I don't claim any fame to that. In fact, that's just not even my strong suit. Because I don't want to get crucified here. But something I will say with absolute confidence is I do 4 to 5 zero checks per season.
Yes.
And I have actually had to re-zero. We'll have warm phases. And I have a lot of buddies that are in the shooting industry, that very good friends of mine. We have conversations about this continuously.
Yep.
And they're like, well, this does this. And I'm like, yep, it sure does in a PRS match at 70 degrees in Texas. That sure, I bet that does exactly what you're saying it does. When you're going into 30 below, your gun is going to react differently. When you're taking stuff in and out of the truck, when you're freezing it out on a machine, whatever you want to, you fill in the blanks. You are going to manipulate the functionality and consistency of that weapon. I don't care what it is. And I have had where I've had zeros that are negative 15 degree zeros. It's bumped up to 30 degrees above, and I'm having accuracy issues.
Yeah.
And it's a simple matter of sitting down on a bench and turning some knobs and getting back into that. And you'll have another temp dip, and now your rifle's out of whack. I've never seen that happens so consistently
Yeah.
somewhere as it does here. And I have minimum five re-zeros per season.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Well, and because our temperatures are not stable in the wintertime.
Yep.
Like, it's not that it drops down to negative 40 and stays there for months.
No, it's all over the map.
Yeah.
What are some of the extremes? What are what are the extreme fluctuations? What degree wise?
I mean,
you figure
any given January, we can be anywhere from 40 above to 62 below. That's what I've seen in Fairbanks over my 15 years living
it's almost
here.
100-degree temperature swing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we
have seen
right on that?
where it jumps up to 40 degrees and rains in January and then refreezes again. And then I think it was my second year here, it was negative 62 in January. And so, I mean, that's what you're up against. That is a huge temperature difference. And then you're also dealing with moisture difference in moisture density in the air. You're dealing with, you're traveling a lot for predator hunting if you're avid about it and you want to explore different areas and do different things. And so you're going to be at different elevations and different terrain features, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that affects it. And I believe you pointed out, you see a lot of these fluctuations, across the board, but they're amplified with rim fires.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit in your experience.
It's I'm not an expert on this, but and I got a lot of buddies that do know a lot about this, and I've had a lot of failures, but you get weird light primer strikes. I think rimfire ammunition is generally, it's just touchy stuff. I mean, from the weapons to the primer system is, that's, we're not splitting atoms here, right? Like this stuff is, was it made on a Wednesday? Was it made on a Friday? Was it made on a Monday? I don't know. But I mean, like it seems like it could be like a QC issue. I don't know.
I'm sure there's tons of QC issues. If
you shoot rimfire ammunition in the summertime, you're going to notice, and I mean, this is common knowledge, that even lot numbers, stuff just varies.
Yeah.
So you have your lot number on your case of ammunition you buy. And I'll do this a lot too. I'll buy case with different stuff. I don't hand load a lot. I'll go hand load with like some buddies that are set up for that. And if I've got something new that I'm trying to tinker with, but, I'll try to, if I find a lot number that I like, that case is designated to fur hunting. And I know a lot of guys do this with stuff, but, rimfire ammunition just does not seem to have consistency.
Yeah.
Even in ideal situations, let alone 20, 30 below.
Right.
And I mean,
well, and to that, I mean, you're exactly right as far as the QC stuff goes. And I mean, everything as far as they're not using the most temperature stable powders to launch those projectiles. They're not, those primers are harder to set than maybe, your traditional center fire primers would be in certain conditions, like when they're cold. There's a lot of those factors there. But like when you say, give me an example of like when you're talking about accuracy issues, because I know you've talked about with people talking about how good of a zero they want and whatnot, and the target size that you're shooting with this. Like, you're not shooting a moose.
We have a lot of buddies that have shot in different theaters at larger targets that we won't get into. Some, anyhow. And I've had buddies they're professional shooters in different theaters, and they're like, well, if I can get a 2 to 3 inch group, that's good enough for me. Well, if you're shooting a 2-legged target, unless you're an exceptional human being, there again, I don't have experience in this, but I can tell you this: you get shot in the arm, you're probably going to set your stuff down, and you're going to be done fighting, unless you're an exceptional specimen of a human being. So animals will soak lead. There's smaller vital windows. I mean, animals will run mortally wounded go out there and do your research. I'm not even going to get into formal distances here.
Yeah. But you hear horror stories all the time.
We found coyotes at almost a mile that we've shot. And I mean, they have been hit once, hit proper, and
Yeah.
they get a burst of adrenaline and they're, the terrain's good, and dude, they will run and run and run and run.
Mm-hmm.
And we always have that conversation of there's anchoring bullets and there's fur friendly bullets. And it's a rarity that you find one that covers both uses.
Yeah.
What's going to be fur friendly is generally not going to be an anchoring bullet. And you hear all these guys like, well, I want to anchor them. And it's like,
learn to sew.
Learn to sew or learn to walk.
Right.
Like, and that's, we have a lot of snow. It's pretty easy to track stuff here with what we're doing, what we're talking about.
Right. Blood pops pretty good.
Even
if it soaks in, and let's say it's snowing like it is outside
tracks.
right now, you've got tracks. Yeah.
Yep. And if you get off your butt, you can go find what you shot.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done it a bunch, and like, oh, I don't like this because I get runners, and it's really going to come down to whatever your liking is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, whiskey, wine, beer. So, it's trial and error is what it's going to come down to.
Yep.
And
I like the way you've pointed it out to me several times as I go through different bullets and configurations and things like that. You're like, nothing's 100%.
Nope.
Like even the fur friendly bullet's gonna goof up some hide sometime. Like
nothing's repeatable.
Yeah. Like there is no, like the one that anchors it this time isn't going to anchor it next time, or the one that just pinholed through and didn't ruin the hide at all this time is going to absolutely clobber the opposite side next time. Like it's just, you're shooting a very small animal.
Yeah, and the thing,
there's variables there.
Regardless of how you want to steer it, you want the most accuracy you can squeeze out of something, because you have all these things that you're not, and you see guys that guys bench rest shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's based off bench rest shooting. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to go down to South Cushman or something, is sit down maybe against one of those posts on one of those benches where on a side that's not busy.
Yep.
And sit on and use your equipment and your bipod and shoot in odd positions. And it's not bench rest shooting.
No, it's not.
And I get a lot of bench rest dudes letting me know master advice on this, and it's very interesting. But and I've gone, dude. Carson schooled me on shooting at distance, and laying prone, and I've not knowing how to shoot prone. I've ditched my bipod and all my crap and got right into a prone position to shoot at a coyote, because it's like wherever I'm at, whether it's like snow, you're looking at the snow depth or whatever, unsteady ground, or it's better to take a prone shot, and you're not going to sit and lay prone and call. And I'm sure there's people cringing at this right now.
Don't care who you are.
That's fine. Like you're not going to lay there for 45 minutes in a prone position, concealed, where you can see everything in our terrain, and just shoot like you do in matches. It's not going to happen. Sorry. You're going to always be shooting in awkward positions.
Yeah.
And out of awkward hides and weird stuff. I would practice that way.
Practice how you fight.
Yep.
Train the way you fight.
I can shoot pretty good off some bags.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, we say this about any kind of hunting. I mean, if you're gearing up to go moose hunting, don't use a lead sled. Like, don't go put that lead sled on the bench, rest your rifle in it, and go squeeze off a couple rounds and be like, oh yeah, I'm on target. Great. Do it freehand. Do it, standing with some sort of standing support, whether you're using your arm up against a tree or, that pole right there. Shoot sitting down, shoot prone, shoot. Practice the way you're going to shoot in the field. Yep. You're not going to have a lead sled and a bench in the field, and if you do, you're extremely lucky.
And I would shoot a lot of different ways. I would shoot like me. I shoot off a bipod. For years, I shot without a bipod, and I had I think I mentioned this one time to you, but I had a buddy. He's like, Carl and another friend of ours. He's like, one day we're all chatting, and he's like, what are you shooting at? What kind of bipod do you use, Chris? I was like, what? I don't use one. And it was very humbling, because he goes, you don't use a bipod? And I said, no. He's like, man, you must miss a lot. And he was right.
Yeah.
Right. Calling more than I was shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to have some humble pie and be like, well, what do I got to do here? And
Yeah.
he's like, you got to, whatever it is, you should rest on something.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different ball game, dude.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you're missing a lot, hon. I'm like, I'm missing everything.
Mm.
And off the bench, I mean, I'm
Sure.
half MOA, 1/4-inch groups with some of this zippy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, dude, superstar right off the bench.
And
but
it's great when you're trying out different ammo and you're trying to see what your gun likes and you want to see how tight of a group you can possibly get. That's great. You
Yep.
know, that's what the bench is for. That's what the lead sleds are for.
yeah, and you got to do that. That's part of the process.
Exactly. And then once you're zeroed, once you know what your gun's doing, it likes the ammo, your crosshairs are on, get off of it and start
Agreed.
and start doing real world drills.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful transition though. Let's jump into that. So you we mentioned talking about gear. So go into a little bit about that, like what sitting gear you use, what kind of stuff you use as far as bipods. I know you got me kitted out last year, and it is sick.
Yep.
The setup you got me going with, and I'm loving it.
Cost me a lot of money to figure that out. That cheap fix.
So whatever secrets you're willing to give up, let's.
Can I name like products here?
Absolutely,
I
you
don't want to
can.
step
Yeah.
on anyone's toes here, but
No, absolutely you can.
So, sitting, I see everybody do all sorts of different stuff.
Because one thing
I've got pretty much you guys on all you guys, Carl. I mean, everybody, dude.
Well, and one thing I'll point out before you plug what you actually use, for anybody that's not sat in snow for extended periods of time, it doesn't matter if your bibs or your coveralls or whatever they say are water resistant or waterproof even. When you're sitting in snow, one, it's going to push through. You're going to get your long johns wet, you're going to get your skin wet, and then you're in trouble if it's really cold outside. The other thing is you're compressing. Carson went over this with the sleeping bag thing and between synthetic and down. But when you have the best of the best Carhartt bibs, right? The ones that are meant to keep you warm, or like this coverall set I've got is Refrigiwear, rated for -50. That's awesome. But when you're compressing that with your skin right up against the snow, you're losing that insulation value and you're gonna get cold. And so there is value in having a barrier between yourself and the snow that isn't gonna soak through, that isn't gonna allow that cold transfer. So that's where what you're about to plug is magical and really changes the game.
Yeah, so you could sit on anything. I've sat on just about everything. Piece of foam.
Mm-hmm.
So, like one of these bags that I like to use is King's Camo makes the well, I don't know if this is the distributor here or anyway, there's this Sly Dog chair, and it's got like a little dump pouch on it, and it's got like a back support and a foam pad seat. And I love to use that thing. I usually ditch that dump pouch and tie my bear baiting backpack into that. Into that chair, and maybe we could like down the road throw a photo up of that, and then you can throw your gear in there. It serves as a chair and a backpack,
right?
And the dump pouch that comes on it isn't that impressive once you start loading it up with stuff. Like,
basically, just a gunny sack.
Yeah, and it literally, yeah. Cool little bag for odds and ends, but maybe to put in the backpack that you're going to end up using on there.
Mm-hmm.
But not a lot of room for storage, and that's not waterproof either.
No.
And like Carson and I were talking about this, I dress pretty light when I'm predator hunting, and I add clothing as needed because sometimes you're walking into places, you're sweating.
Yep.
You can fade quick.
Yeah. And sweating when it's negative temperatures outside is very bad.
Yeah, it's
very bad.
The results are instantaneous.
Yes.
I mean, you
don't want your body initiating its cooling mechanism when it's already cold outside.
Yeah, there's like cross country skiing, and then there's sitting as still as you can.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes plus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it gets the better of you. So I love using that chair. And I like this one's Sly Dog. There's Beard Buster. There's a couple different brands of this thing. Lucky Duck makes one. I don't know that I'm really impressed with that one.
I noticed they're advertised as more like a turkey hunting thing.
Yeah, and I think that's where these things originated.
Yeah,
and they've kind of crossed over into the predator hunting world.
I mean, real world review, they work great in the snow.
Dude.
Those little kickstands that come around on the back and like you can really lean back and you're not just sitting there upright for 45 minutes and trying to like, you can just literally kick back. That pad's thick enough. It doesn't get your butt doesn't get cold. Like it's awesome.
That thing makes a world of difference. And and I used to lean against trees and stuff, which works too, but you don't always have a tree to lean against. You start leaning against some stuff that's got a little flexibility to it. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed how much you move limbs and stuff. And I mean, you're just waving this tree around trying to be slick.
And it's just a flag, basically.
Yeah. It's the only tree out in the field there that's moving around.
Yeah.
So, and now a lot of the time I'll nestle into stuff with that seat and I won't even lean against natural structure.
Yeah. Well, because then you're also not knocking the snow off the top branches and coming down right on top of you and down your coat and everything and getting you wet, getting you cold.
That happens a lot.
It does.
Yep. And you can set that thing on some pretty odd angles too.
Well, so you and I last year when we were running around, I mean, we were on hills, we were on flats. It almost seemed like no matter where we were, like you could adjust those supports on the back as steep or as shallow as you needed them to be. And to my memory, I mean, I've got one up there. We could really look at it, but they're not extendable. I don't think they just kind of
they're not extendable, but they don't need to be.
No, they don't.
There's so much play there for adjustment that and there's like two straps. They're kind of like they got the buckles on them, and you can kind of move them around to recline it a little more or bring it more upright.
Sure.
And then what I like about it is it comes with like backpack straps on it. I have buddies that have gone like full tilt and just cut those straps off. I wouldn't recommend doing that because the other thing is I've used it for bear hunting. And so where the dump pouch does suffice because you're maybe not hauling a lot of stuff initially or you're pulling that off a frame pack going. So I wouldn't commit to just mutilating that bag if you don't have to. Usually I'll kind of zip tie everything so it's out of the way. And then I'll incorporate the backpack that I prefer into that. And if you're going to put some coin into something, keeping your butt dry and keeping your back fresh for running around all day is nice.
Well, and to that point, this isn't even breaking the bank. I think I got mine for like $98 or something like that.
Yeah, I think
like maybe $120 at the high end. Like
they're about between. It looks like $90 to $120 depending on where you go for it.
Yeah, so cut it out of a paycheck and you'll be fine. Like, and it will amplify your experience. Because the other thing I liked about it, and you talked a lot about this during our first couple of runs last year, and I think you even mentioned it on the show at one point, was speed. You're not hanging out at the truck. You're not, goofing around. You're not, and you get in, you do your thing, you get out. And when you got a setup like this where that seat can just fold up, throw that strap over your shoulder and go. I mean, you're going from setup to moving in 30 seconds.
Yep.
Like you want to get into an area and call? Great. You go, you set up your call, however many yards in front of you want, or right on you if you want. And then you flip this thing out, flip the seat out, kick those stands back, and you're sitting in the snow, camoed up, comfortable, ready to shoot in 30, 45 seconds.
Well, and think about your time consumption when you're calling.
Yeah.
It's so insane. It's exhausting. Because so you walk into somewhere, you find out where you want to post up. Okay, so you set your stuff down, and you got to do something with your rifle. Either hopefully you got it on. You should probably keep it with you. But then you're setting your seat up, you're pulling your call out, and then you're going out, you're setting your call up, decoy if you got one.
Yep.
And there's a lot there before you're even starting to do what you're gonna. And then sometimes you're hand calling, whatever. You're getting nestled in, you're getting the hand calls out. it's time consuming enough as it is.
Well, and 5 to 10 minutes here and there adds up to a lot over the course of a full day.
Dude, it is a full day.
Yeah. 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 You do that 6 times, that's an hour.
I mean, I've left 4 a.m. and got home at 1 a.m. the next morning.
Yep.
And that was my day of calling.
Yep.
And I mean, dude.
Yeah.
And something else I'll say about the seat is I'm starting to get creaky from putting on hard miles and stuff and what I do. And like, it's nice to be able to just kick back in something where you're not like, where you're just not beating on your back.
Yeah.
Or sitting in odd positions. And that thing is pretty ergonomic.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, and that's the other thing. I mean, not only will your butt get wet sitting in the snow, but if you're leaned back into a hillside with snow, I mean, same concept. Your back's going to get wet. Your hoodie that you got under your bibs and jacket that's going to get soaked. I mean, you can really end up in a bad position quick. I mean, being able to keep your back and your entire body, essentially, other than your boots, out of the snow is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to stay so much warmer, so much more comfortable. And the other thing I like is your bipod setup, because that system combined, I mean, you're effectively ready to rock and roll.
Yeah,
from sitting down.
Well, and they both sort of work with each other. So I'm a big fan of the Swaggers, not the old school Swagger, the big cumbersome clunky.
Yeah,
there's the OG Swagger. I like the QD, the quick disconnect Swagger. And there's all kinds of different bipods nowadays. I mean, there seems to be, dude, I looked at it the other day. It was insane. There's so many hunting bipod setups. There's some neat ones out there. I got a buddy that's actually I've been talking to I'm trying to get him to let us try some gear out through a company he's hooked up with. But the best thing I've found for what you're doing, you're not resting a 375 H&H on these things. You're, and this is where you
and if you are, you really don't care about fur quality.
Well,
just kill them all.
I want to come calling with you. But that QD 42 is what I use by Swagger, and it breaks down. It's got quite a few adjustments on it where you can kind of leave it in position. There are some killer bipods out there, but for what we're doing, this one has seemed to be the best. It's got the rubber feet covers on it, so you can pull those covers off, and there's actual like steel cleats in there for if you're on an icy surface, like a lake or and I thought I'm never going to use this. I've used it a bunch.
Sure.
In fact, I hardly ever have the rubber feet on. What I generally I'll put them on so I don't tear holes in my truck seats and stuff.
Right.
Because I've stuffed those things right through the truck interior before. And they do get hung up on stuff. They're pretty sharp.
Yeah, they are.
One thing I will recommend is if you get one of those is because of what you're doing, I think it's got to do with a lot of temperature fluctuation exposure. I'll pull those cleats and I'll put some Loctite in there and put them back in.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing with calling. You're always, just because of what you're subjecting this stuff to.
Yep.
It's not summer weather. It's multi-temps and conditions, water, moisture, whatever. Things seem to loosen up in the predator hunting world.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you that from a telecom standpoint, that was one of my biggest things I would chase. I used to work for GCI. I'll just name drop the company. I used to work for GCI back in the day, and those fittings that go from the power lines to people's homes are screwed in.
Sure.
You'd be amazed how many times people would call me because they're having issues with their TV or their internet or something like that, and it was almost unscrewed off the power line or off the telephone line.
I bet sometimes you guys found them where they fell out.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just that warming, cooling.
Welcome to Alaska.
The metal expanding and contracting. It'll just work itself loose.
Dude, and that's that whole, that going back to, firearm setups and different things in regard to reliability. I had a buddy that had this rifle that was shooting phenomenally. And then one day we're out and he's like, dude, I don't know what's going on with this thing. And we're trying to chase this issue down. I'm like, your scope looks candid. He's like, oh, does it? I grab this scope, good equipment too. Like this is gonna make people cringe. There's like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You can crucify me for this. I don't. That's fine. I could grab his scope and spin it in the rings.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, he's like, dude, I got to get this dealt with. And I'm like, did you torque this down to spec? He's like, dude, I torqued it down to spec. I'm like, who did it? He tells me who helped him. I'm like, there's no way. Like, yeah, people make mistakes, but that dude is OCD.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. We get in his truck, sit down, and we're warming up. We're at the Cushman range, and it's, I think it was about 30 below out. I couldn't spin that scope in those turrets after it sat on the floor for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
We took it back out, put it on the lead sled. You could spin that scope around again, and it's just that expansion and that contraction of that of those components. You could get play out of that scope in those rings, and that's one of the things. Most of the time, when I get resistance to these ideas, is from dudes that stop shooting when it becomes uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, but this stuff will happen to you. You do this long enough, and you're going to run into these problems.
Well, and you're exposing your equipment to conditions that you're not going to find on any forum. It's not in a book where you can just, by the book, this shouldn't happen. It's not applicable.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
Like, this is the book's not talking about -40, -30 degree temperatures where, you're literally going through the maximum extremes. And as we pointed out earlier, it could be -30 on Monday and 30 above on Friday. That's a 60-degree swing.
Yeah,
Now,
and you could really have some accuracy issues depending on what you're shooting.
Well, and then think about just getting out to your spot. I mean, if you, even on the back seat, on the floorboards, kind of out of the way of any direct heat, there's still an insane temperature difference between the inside of your truck and the back, or in the outside.
I think it's a lot of it is the changes that you're subjecting this stuff to, just kind of across the board, bringing it back in the house. You hear guys that are like, I leave my rifle in the truck all season. Well, that still doesn't matter either. That's irrelevant, because at some point you're gonna put that thing in a different environment.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter. Your truck's changing with all these changes too.
You leave it in there overnight, and then it gets cold, and you heat it up on the way to work, and it gets warm. And
that thing's not some like temp stable, vessel that you store your firearm away in when you're not using it. That's not how that works. Sorry to break it to you, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of different stuff. I've seen guys. There again, I'm not a ballistician. I'm not a ballistics expert. I've seen guys load stuff with temp stable powders, and cool. So you have temp stable powders, and you get a 0 on in the cold, and it warms up, and that temp stable powder can actually have huge swings in output.
When you have the temperature swings that we have, sure. When you're only dealing with 20, 30 degree swings, whatever. Who cares? You probably don't even need a temperature stable powder at that point, but not the way we do it up here.
I mean, and I think the biggest thing is just, and I mean, I don't know, I love this. This doesn't intimidate me, is go out and shoot.
Yeah.
Go out and shoot when it's cold. And when you're spent, go get warm. I mean, I love going to the range when it's freezing cold. I love to see what stuff does.
Yeah.
And it's not all just pertinent to loads or powder or whatever. Your firearm is doing different stuff too. There are so many different components that have the potential to move or become manipulated from the cold or the warmth. You've got scope rings, scope bases, scopes,
Picatinny rail adapters.
You could have, what's your stock doing? What's that stock? How's that stock changing shape when it's exposed to these temperature swings? What's that barrel doing? What's your bore doing? What's your restriction look like just past the chamber there? What's your restriction look like at the muzzle? I mean, I'm sure that there's people out there that could break this stuff down that have a bigger brain than myself, but I mean, there's a lot going on there. And Carson and I were talking about this. You have, so the air density is less in cold, right?
Mhm.
So from a ballistics standpoint, you have less drag.
Yeah,
you
less
have all these.
resistance.
I mean,
Yep.
you look at you're like, what a beautiful setting to get the utmost performance out of your ballistics, right? And really see what that you could stretch that BC to or whatever. Okay, now you're battling like whatever restriction you have in your bore, and
Yep.
it doesn't matter if you have a precision barrel. It doesn't matter what you have.
Mhm.
And I can't, like I say, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to claim to be. Go out and do this stuff, and you'll run into these problems.
I forget who I was talking to. I keep laughing over here because you keep saying that, oh, I'm not a ballistics. I'm not. And I forget who I was talking to the other day. I was having a ballistics discussion with somebody else because you know me, I get nerdy about it.
Oh yeah,
I want to know why it does this or doesn't do this or something like that. It's that's where my nerdiness kicks in.
And that's why I call you. Yep. Oh yeah.
But I forget who I was talking to, but the concept came up of you and me going, talking about ballistic stuff and shooting and stuff like that, and I was kind of explaining that. I was like, oh man, you should really ask Chris about this. And you should really talk to Chris about it. He'll have some insights on this. I'm like, oh really? Really? Yeah. Is he up on the ballistic stuff? And I'm like, well, I was like, he'll tell you no. And he might not know exactly what the charts say or what this, powder does or the burn rate of this and that. I was like, but that guy will tell you if it works. He's like, he might not know what the paper says, but he'll tell you what it'll do in the field because he's tried it and he'll tell you what the reality is despite what the paper says.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like,
one thing my wife always gives me crap for is she's like, my favorite selling point in my house is this gun, I don't think I'm going to need another one, honey. And she's like, yeah, okay. And she's always like, yeah, remember what you said? Because I've chased a lot of stuff around.
Yeah.
I've chased my tail.
Yep.
You know what, Carson, one thing I love about Carson, my dad used to tell me this. Get proficient with a handgun, get proficient with a rifle. And I've talked to Carson, I'm like, because, he's pretty bad dude when it comes to shooting. That dude's a wealth of knowledge. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
One day I'm with him, and I feel like a little kid. I'm like, I bet you have a lot of guns, huh, Carson? He's like, nope. And, he's got a couple. He's like, I'm a simple man.
Fear the man with one gun.
I run. I know my weapons well. And there's a lot to be said for that.
Yes.
Being well acquainted. You have a guy with a bunch of guns in a safe and
yep.
You can't know them all.
No. Dude, and that's where the difference between my gun enthusiasm has changed as I get older. Is back in my younger 20s, I would have 30, 40 rifles at any given time.
Oh, sure.
Many of them I didn't even have ammo for. I just picked them up at Alaska Ammo or off, some...
That's just cool guy stuff.
Yeah, trading deal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd go walk into my armory, I called it at the time, and, I'd walk in there and just ooh and ah over all my guns. But, there were ones I had never shot before. I had no idea how they performed. I was just like, oh, that one looks cool. I'll buy it. I'll shoot it someday.
Yeah.
And, as I get older, I'm more interested in that aspect, the perfecting this platform. I'm not going to get another gun until this one's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll move on to the next project.
Yeah, you sell a lot of guns like that too.
Yeah.
They don't, you just can't get them to do what you want them to do. And you give up and you're like, you know what? I can put this money and time into a new project.
Right.
And I've done that with predator hunting a lot too,
Mm-hmm.
nothing that's applicable to any other shooting scenario really seems to cross over to this.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a guy that has a cutoff, if you're like, I don't call past 0,
Mm-hmm.
well, you might luck out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But my work schedule, I don't have the money or the luxury of picking the days that I go.
Exactly.
If I clear it with my wife and I clear it with my customers, those are the days I have. And if those days suck, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah.
And it takes a heck of a lot to get me to not go out and call. And
yeah. What is your official cutoff? Do you have one?
Oh, it's getting less and less every year.
The older you get.
Dude, I did some pretty I called pretty cold. Yeah. When I first started calling, obviously our winters have gotten way weaker.
Yeah, they have.
But 40 below.
That.
I remember the first year I took up calling, dude, I don't think I got very many days above 0.
Mm-hmm.
And I called. I called a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I probably called 4 days a week.
Yeah.
All winter. I did not back out, and it was very, very cold my first year.
I was saying back then that meant cold.
And you know, like you
'Cause,
talk to
like-
guys like Maxwell that, you know, I ice fished 90 days or what, I don't know, whatever. Don't quote me. But like you're like, dang, I mean, that guy's gonna have some insight to ice fishing.
Yes, 100%.
You know, and I've ice fished a lot too.
Mhm.
But I'd go ask that guy about ice fishing if I wanted to know.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, somebody that's doing it all the time, and I've put a lot of money into this and had a lot of failures and letdowns.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, too, a lot of the guns that have worked for me, they're not the gun that you would pull out on Christmas and show all your buddies. I mean, it's just this is not a swinging contest when it comes to this stuff.
No.
I mean, it's true. I mean, it's not like you're pulling out a fine piece of art when you, hey man, I mean, I'll have buddies. They'll be like, dude, can I see your Predator setup? And I'm like, are you sure you want to? Yeah, dude, I've been dying. I want to know and I'll pull, and they're like, what? Like, are you serious? Like, oh, I mean, this is what's worked for me.
Yeah, and it's what you know, and it's what is accurate, and it's not a beauty contest.
I was listening to you
Yeah.
and Harrison talk about this. Like, it kind of came up for a split second.
Yeah.
But like, Savage, dude,
Mhm.
they're like, I mean, they're bare bones, like entry level. And actually, you know what? They're not. I mean, they're really starting to make some good stuff.
Yeah.
But like a lot of, you know what's funny? They offer a lot of these chamberings, like these wildcat chamberings. A lot of these other
Mhm.
companies don't facilitate these wildcat chamberings that
Yeah.
we use for this stuff. There's not really a lot of options out there to toy around and explore with some of these like zippy little cartridges. And Hornady always seems to have Savage always seems to have something available to facilitate these cartridges and stuff.
Yeah, they do. And they have a very, like you said, they're getting into that kind of higher tier. But I mean, they still have all of the price points. I mean, down from like $300 all the way up to, $2,000. So whatever, you're looking for there. But like, I think I've always said it. I don't know. But like, of that lower price point rifles,
yeah.
If I have to grab one of those, I'll grab a Savage all day long.
Well,
because you're not going to find the bells and whistles that you will on a Savage in the price point that you'll find it there.
Nope.
Like even your $400 Savage is going to have some bells and whistles. It might be fairly bare bones, but like bare bones for them is still an adjustable trigger. It's still a lot of these key features that you typically have to get into the $800+ range to get with other rifles.
Yep. And generally where you see resistance on this is like with the long range guys and different stuff. And like, and I get that, but for what we're doing,
yeah.
and it's
different tool for different applications.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't just string one across the board. Like if someone was like, I want to get a good bear hunting rifle, I'm probably going to direct you towards something a little more high end.
Right.
If you're going to be doing some spot and stock and I mean, but low risk, most of my Predator hunting rifles are all Savages.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about long range. We're not talking about the prettiest safe queen you have to pull out and show your buddies on the holidays. These are ugly rifles. Half of them are rattle canned, gone to our gunsmith buddy and been mutilated for, different reasons. I mean, these are low risk investments. And I also think that Predator rifles are, to some point, like a deplorable item.
Mm-hmm.
Your long range weapon or your big game hunting rifle, you're going to take care of that thing, and you're going to do different things. You might rebarrel it. You might do like snow and cold and different stuff works on these actions and works on these components. And like I've had some rifles that I've just hung up.
Yeah.
Like I've retired them because they're just, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're using them and you're putting them through the ringer, you're going to get surface rust. You can Cerakote stuff. It doesn't matter. That's all that's going to do is protect things topically. You're still going to get moisture inside stuff that's not coated, and you're going to burn throats out on a lot of these cartridges. They're barrel
zinging.
burners.
They're zinging.
Yep. You burn throats out. Sometimes you burn the barrel out. Sometimes you burn the throat out. I mean, you hang them up.
Just to give people an expectation, what would you say, barring the special occasions where you see something at distance where you've got to make a poke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Average per se, what expected range should people like go for? You know, like 200, 300. I mean,
50 yards.
Yeah, because I know the goal is always to call them in close.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean,
the closer they get, the better. But
if you're putting your call out, whatever, everyone's got a different take on that. Do whatever tickles your fancy there. But it's cool. You put your call at 200 yards, and you got something comes out. I've had lynx walk in my footprints with my 36-inch snowshoes on because it's an easy path of travel. I've had them get off of the rough travel and get onto my footprints and walk past me at 5 yards to go out to my call that's 100 yards out. I mean, you know, 50 yards, I think, is a reasonable expectation.
Yeah.
I think, and that is all dependent upon what region of the state you're working in. Because some stuff you're going to have, all of it's going to be at extended ranges.
Right. Depending on how much brush you're working with.
And I'm a 2-gun guy. Yeah. Super inconvenient, super, there again, you're going to drop one of those guns in the snow. You're going to be cleaning stuff off. You're going to be cleaning glass. That's the nature of the game.
Yeah.
There's, sometimes you need to take a crank and your 22 mag or your 17 WSM is not going to do the job.
No.
Or you get something in close, and the last thing you want to do is hammer that thing with a 50 grain VMAX or whatever, right? So,
well, and you've even talked about having to use like pistols at some points.
I actually really like using a pistol.
Yeah.
I carry a 5.7 with 20 rounds in it with FMJ.
Yep.
And I've shot stuff at 10 yards with that thing.
Yeah.
Pulled that out, and sometimes you have something, if you're a right-handed shooter, you have something come in from your right. It's a lot of adjustment to shimmy around to get on a right-handed shot on something like that. A lot of
movement, a lot of noise.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And getting caught. And
yeah.
And those are really those situations that you have two options. You could try to be stealth about it, or you can just be abrupt about it and be known and squeeze that shot off.
Surprise!
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. No, pistols are awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's an awesome thing.
Yep.
It's how one-dimensional you want to be, or how crazy you want to get with it.
Well, and it sounds to me like versatility is the name of the game, because you're never going to be in a known environment. You're never going to be in a standard, repeatable stance, or set. You could go run 5 sets in a day and all 5 are going to be different.
You hop on the machine or run down the highway. Every single stand is going to offer up something different geographically.
Yep. A different distance to shoot, a different place to sit, a different challenge to overcome, different animals.
There's just no consistency in this.
Yeah.
That's why you really got to think that way to kind of be ready for, there's so much diversity. And like, I got buddies that live down south. I got buddies that live in the Dakotas, and they're like, oh, everything's flat hills. And I mean, these guys are exceptional long range shooters because that's what they have.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys grew up shooting, 400 yards was like the entry level.
Yeah.
It's mind boggling. But
yeah.
And those guys, when they get into our environment, they're not good at those close range, that snap shooting stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because
yep. Yeah, you can't watch the yotes come in from 1,000 yards to 800 to 600 to, and then finally crack off a shot at 400 when they hang up, like none of that stuff, and that's how it is in Kansas a lot of the times. That's how it is in Arizona. I know I've got buddies in Arizona that do it, like, and it's all wide open sagebrush desert down there. You can see forever if you're a little bit elevated. And, but yeah, up here, it's a whole different ball game. And I think that versatility is really what kind of gets a lot of people. I think everybody's looking for that, whether it's the rifle or the platform, the setup, the whatever it is. They're looking for that repeatability, that familiarity, that I want to know I have this good of a percentage of chance every single time I go out, and it's just not there.
Not that way.
Yeah, it's not there. So, once you accept that, I feel is part of the fun of it. It's the same with any other form of hunting, really, where, every moose hunt I do, I come away with a new lesson. Every bear baiting season, I come away with a new lesson. And that's the fun. Is it would be boring if it got stagnant and you just learned everything. And
you
knew
find
it all
so much stuff too when you're doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You find things. Dude, I can't tell you how many people I've met like middle of the week driving around the state calling. And you stop in a gas station somewhere to fill up, and you meet somebody, and like next thing you know, you got a friend in that town.
Yeah. Yep.
Or they're like, "What are you doing, man?" Or if they know what you're doing, they can tell what you're doing, and they do the same thing.
Yeah.
You got a calling buddy, and hey, man, I got a spare house over on the property. If you're ever down here, like, dude, it's just like it's like what you're talking about, Africa. You're just getting out is going to warrant new experiences, regardless of what they are.
Yep.
Making friends, doing new, or you can just sit on a couch, and I think we've all played that game at some point.
Yeah. Can't stand it.
Counting the days.
Yeah.
And it just ain't good. And I would say use whatever you got.
Yes. That's always the starting point.
And don't use what I use.
Yeah.
Use whatever makes you happy.
I would say one of the biggest mistakes new hunters make when they're getting into something completely foreign to them is thinking whatever they have isn't good enough and they need to drop a ton of coin on a whole new system, a whole new setup, which if you have the coin and that's your little nerdy like thing you like to do is like create a whole new kit, a whole new system, and like, spend money on hunting gear, absolutely do what makes you happy. It's a free country.
Do whatever works for you.
But like, don't think you're at a disadvantage if all you've got is a 2.2 mag that might not be the most accurate, but you can fine tune it a little bit, maybe play with different ammo, maybe throw a different scope on there, maybe, use whatever cold weather gear you've got, and get a couple of smaller items like this seat that will amplify your experience a lot. $98, $100 bill to amplify your experience out there sitting in the snow. This bipod, the bipod's not very much money either.
No, and this bipod, maybe it's not the best thing for other stuff or whatever, but it's just awesome for this.
Well, and I love that. One thing that's very unique about that bipod, and we just wrap up on that, is the springs at the top of the legs is so unique to that Swagger setup.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is top tier versatility.
Dude, it's awesome.
You can set those legs 100% opposite each other direction, whether that's out, up, down, forward, back, doesn't matter. You can extend one length, a different length, and set up on the side of the hill. Now, for people that are used to loading their bipods, where you kind of push some pressure forward on it to get a little bit more stability, you're not going to do that with this one. It's too flimsy for that. But you're not trying to. Again, you're not shooting a 300 Win Mag. You're shooting a 2.2.
Something else where those springs really come in handy is, and I've used several different bipod setups, but so you dig those legs into the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you encounter is something doesn't come in where you anticipate it. Well, you're sort of committed. Those legs are just dug in the snow.
Right.
And to readjust a bipod generally, you got to pick the front end of the rifle up,
mm-hmm.
pull it out, depending on how deep the snow is or whatever you got going on. You're making a lot of movement to get those adjustments.
Right.
Those springs, you can twist that rifle around.
Yeah.
Without doing all that.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid either to get up off my butt and take a knee and spin around. Like it doesn't, whatever it takes to get that shot off.
Yeah.
Because
then also, if you do end up having to pull them out of the snow, I mean, you can just grab them both, and now they're a shooting stick, basically.
Yeah, and I've done that a bunch with those.
Yeah.
I've sat down initially in spots where I'm like, this is not going to be conducive to using a bipod. I've pinched those things together. It's got that clip on it.
Yep.
Which I generally break. It's the first good cold day that I go.
Yeah,
go
exactly.
Out. But I'll just pinch them together anyway and just stuff them down in that snow load.
Yep.
And they stay basically like a, what'd you call it?
Shooting stick.
Yeah, shooting stick. And then that thing you have the ability to spin around and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And guys, I'll see guys extend those out a lot. You really don't have to do that. You can really.
Yeah.
And
what do those shrink up to? Do you know?
I want to say it's 14 inches.
14 to 42? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of adjustability in those legs.
And and I started with, you talk to people that haven't done this a lot. And I remember like getting advice, I'd get like tack bipods and stuff. They just don't work well.
No.
I ran like a Harris one time that was like a long that I modded out. That's actually what I ran for years before I figured this out.
That's the one I was looking at before you turned me on to the Swaggers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the problem is you're always trying to figure out how to mount that on different weapon systems and stuff. And every weapon system doesn't offer the features that those things require to mount them. And those bipods mount up on like a piece of like pick.
Yeah.
And so like on my AR setups, I'll get the pick rail that's got the QD cup on it too, because I run QD slings on anything I can nowadays.
Yep.
So it'll actually have the QD cup on the fore end on the handguard on the bottom of the handguard for my sling, and then I can slide that bipod on that. That's also, when you have a sling on there, it also kind of serves as a stop. Because even if you're like spot and stock hunting and you whip that bipod out and you go to throw that on there, I can't tell you how many times like I've been pumped, slid that thing on the rear of that Picatinny rail, and then just slid it right off the front. In those things, they do sort of require, I will say, they do kind of require like a break-in period. Definitely. You'll start to, like, they can be really tight. They get kind of deceiving. You buy them and you get them set up and you're like, man, this thing's a pain to get on. And there's a couple things you got going for you there. Generally, once they cool off, they seem to want to go on a little easier outside in the cold. That's that whole temp manipulation thing again versus material. And then just breaking them in. When you're sitting on the couch or whatever, I would just take and pull your bolt out, whatever you got going on, make sure everything's safe, and then just work that thing off and onto that rail system.
Yeah.
But it'll mount up to basically any small pick style rail.
Awesome.
And then they come with like one that goes on your sling stud.
That's
pretty good. I mean, and then some of your like higher end rifles now, they have where you can put a piece of pick rail on the fore end. And
yeah, because a lot of the newer, like the higher end rifles, if people go that route, they'll have like 2 sling studs on the front. And they actually, most companies will make a pick adapter that has holes that line up with those.
Yeah.
Those 2 sling studs. And I think there probably is an industry standard for that too. And then you can just have, instead of the 2 sling studs, and then there's typically either a QD cup on those or some kind of extra sling stud that comes off the back of it. So you're not without a sling stud on the front, but just you have that pick rail attachment.
Yeah.
And that really does make it so versatile. It's just so easy to slap on there and likewise pull it off when you don't need it.
It's all like time saving stuff.
Yeah. When you're packing up and getting back in the truck and moving to the next spot, I mean, it's just so easy and so quick. It's really, really a game changer.
What's nice about it too is like it's not always stationary. You're not, because a lot of bipod setups now, I feel like we're starting to get away from that. Everything is somewhat seems to be detachable at some capacity now, but like just being able to like stow that away if you don't need it, having your gun in your truck. We live in a state with awesome two-way rules.
Yeah.
And so, that makes that nice too. Cause I mean, that can get cumbersome. You start adding all this stuff on your rifle.
Right.
It's nice to be able to get stuff off in a flash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Light and whatever your deal is.
Yep. That's the same thing. I like those lights that one that I got. I think it's from Predator Nation, maybe. It was some company actually down in the southern part of the States. But it's just got
your optic light.
My optic light, yeah.
Yeah,
but it's just got that real quick, like double C clamp that just goes right on the scope, and it's just on and off in seconds.
Yeah,
and it's got a little coil that comes off with your trigger button, and you can mount that wherever you want. It's just a little piece of Velcro, and you can permanently stick it somewhere if you want to. But no, that's that the ability to modify for your environment is huge. I agree with you on that.
The other thing too is like doing maintenance and stuff. It's nice to be able to get everything broken down and clean things, because that's another thing. You're like, if you're taking care of your stuff, you're doing some pretty like routine maintenance on all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's everything gets clean when I come home.
Yeah,
every outing.
Yeah,
which is, dude, that can turn into some cleaning sessions.
Well, and you made a good point last year on an episode about predator hunting, where a lot of these guys they'll tape up their guns with white tape. That's what I did last year. Or they'll use these like kind of self-adhesive wraps that go around, and like they sell the snow camo ones at Sportsman's, you know, and it's super easy to throw on, but you can get a lot of moisture buildup underneath that stuff.
Oh,
and you get a ton of surface rust, especially if you got like a blued barrel rather than like a Cerakoted one or something like that. Tons of surface rust can develop underneath that.
I've taped stainless up and gotten rust, because you're doing something that's not normal.
Yeah.
Is you could be like, oh, I got a stainless barrel and this thing never rusts, and I take it moose hunting and I clean it. Well, yeah, tape it up for 4 months in the middle of winter and pull that tape off at the end of the year. You'll be surprised.
And then because that tape or that wrap, whatever you use to snow camo that's not a paint. When moisture gets in that or under that, it's sitting there. It's not drying off immediately. It's not, you're not wiping it down. When that wrap gets saturated from snow, you're hiking out of an area, snow's coming off the trees, the limbs, the bushes, you maybe drop it at some point, you try to brush it off as best you can. There's still snow in that.
Oh yeah.
And then you throw it in the truck and you drive home, all that snow melts, and now it's saturating that tape or that wrap, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Moist.
And let's be honest, you're not going to pull all that off and redo it.
No.
I mean,
no.
And if you are doing that, there's probably better things you could be doing your time, using your time for.
Right.
I mean,
right. That's why I ended up ordering that other stock for my 22 mag.
Oh, the one you showed me?
Yeah.
That's going to be slick.
I ordered it, and part of the big reason I ordered that was because I can rattle can that and not feel bad about it. And then I don't have to worry about all that wrapping and taping and all that stuff. So,
well, and something that's advantageous to that too is everything breathes.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't have, everything's got exposure.
Yep.
So, which is a plus and a negative, but you can keep an eye on things.
Mm-hmm.
You can access stuff.
Yep.
That stock should come off there pretty easily.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Well, about to learn.
Yeah. You're going to learn today.
Gonna learn today. But,
yeah. But yeah, keeping your weapon clean and you put it well. I think we were having a conversation last week at some point, if I remember right. I don't think it was on the show, but it was, you said it wasn't a lazy man's game.
No.
Like with the re-zeroing you have to do throughout the year, the cleaning to the weapons throughout the year, the maintenance it takes to keep these weapon systems functioning through the conditions we're putting them in. It's not a lazy man's game. You got to pay attention to it.
It's a pain.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, I can't tell you how often my wife and I are sitting there, and we're watching a show or something, and I'm like working through gear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and she'll tell you, it's like I'm always pulling the bag apart, because you want to dry everything out,
right?
Call those, if you're running electronic call, those get moisture inside.
Mm-hmm.
And you can neglect stuff. I've had times in my life where I've neglected things when I was a single man running around, and I'm going to run this thing into the ground. I don't care. Yeah, well, you will.
Yeah.
And when you got a wife that's kind of keeping a tight eye on what you're, and praise the Lord, man, I wouldn't have it any other way, but you start taking care of stuff a little better. Like,
Yeah, something goofs up. You can't just go replace it without permission all the time.
Yeah, you can't just go buy one. You just can't go buy one every time you need to. But
Well, that's a great point you made about the calls, because that's an electronic component that you're exposing to a lot of varied temperature as well. That motherboard that's in there that controls the electronic sound of that component, the battery terminals. I've had the battery terminals start to corrode on me.
Yep.
Your batteries will die quickly.
I've had guys get into this with me too. I'm not an electrician. I've had guys who are like, well, electronics like cold. Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Well, they don't like moisture.
No.
And you can't have one without the other.
Yes.
That's not how it works.
Yes.
It's
Factually speaking, yes. Everybody's right.
Go beat on
electronics
this.
like cold. But,
Yep.
but not what we're talking about.
Go beat on this stuff and get back to me.
You're also setting it down in the snow. It's sitting there in frozen water, in wet. It's all of that stuff is bad for it.
And some of my Fox Pros, I have spare batteries for them.
Yeah. Yep.
So same gig, I'll treat those like I'm putting my 4-wheeler away. Charge the battery up, pull that battery, charge it up all the way, put it in a controlled environment.
Yep.
Right. Don't put them away dead at the end of the season.
Right.
Don't charge them up, open everything up, clean everything out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a good way to maintain stuff, because and those batteries, some of those rechargeables, dude, they are expensive.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And I think that's also an aspect that a lot of people new to the game might not think about off the get-go. Oh, man, yeah, this entire thing corroded on me, and now it's not sounding right, or it's not working at all, and I don't know why until you tear it apart. But
I always tell guys, don't buy buying used electronic predator calls is like buying used optics.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reference to, it's just the same reason why you wouldn't go pick underwear up at the transfer site. You don't know who's been in them, what's been done to them, right? So it's the same gig.
As long as they're still white, it's okay.
I mean, you always see people. Yeah, it's funny. You see people they'll sell a rifle, and I'm never real pumped on the it comes with scope. It's what I sure wouldn't want anyone to have one of my scopes.
Right. Right. Honestly,
wouldn't wish that on anybody.
In my experience selling firearms, I've had better luck separating scope from platform. And you'd almost think in my head when I was first trying to start selling a couple of platforms off back in the day, I would be like, oh well, it's already zeroed, it's already set up, just grab and go. But it's everybody's personal preference, and they either know you probably abused it, or they just want a different scope on there, and that's what it is. But
and when you're new, that stuff seems appealing. I heard some old guy, I was listening to some predator hunting podcast, and the dude's he's like, yeah, you shoot them for a while, and before you shoot the barrel out and ruin everything, you sell them. And I'm like, jeez. And those rifles that get retired, I've had buddies that are like, what are you doing with that? And I'm like, you don't want that.
Yeah.
No, dude. No, I know. I know. As is sale. I'm like, no, you do not want that.
Yeah.
You do not want that.
No.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you here.
I'm trying to. Just go.
Just go. Just get out. So let's finish this one up by finish going through your list there. I saw you got a little bit of a list there. What are some I think the one thing we haven't talked about on this episode so far is clothing. You mentioned you were wanting to bring up some stuff about footwear and some clothing stuff. And then you mentioned earlier that you go in light, you dress light and add layers as needed. We can talk about that for a little bit, especially for if we got GIs listening that maybe haven't gone through a winter up here,
Yeah, well, we've mentioned this before, but from the footwear angle, Alaska Gear Company is making the new bunny boots.
Yes.
And they've made a lot of improvements to those things.
Yeah, I'm excited to get my pair,
dude. Yeah, do you have one on order yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna bite the bullet on that pretty soon here. You got bunny boots are a great option. I've changed my stance on that a little bit because now we have something that's a piece of gear that's been modernized and improved, right? Now those guys are doing an awesome job over there recreating old things. Those boots are really light.
Yeah. Which bunny boots have always been like good. They're kind of a staple of Alaskan outdoorsmen in the wintertime,
they're just
like
clunky.
They're clunky. The shape of them was really weird because they were really hard to drive in.
Yep.
And the problem I had was you're always getting them at surplus stores, so the tread on the bottom is always worn down. Even the ones I had in the Army, man, I got them from the gear place on base. I'm not even going to pretend to remember what the acronym for that is now.
I know which one you're talking about.
It's been 14 years since I got out, so don't judge me. But like mine were
already. I got all my stuff when I started.
Mine were already worn down by the time I got them, and they were supposed to be new to me, right? Like, I mean, so super slick. I've never busted my tailbone more times than wearing bunny boots.
Well, and I always put the cleats on them too. Like,
you have to.
Like when I worked up in Prudhoe, they'd hand those things out constantly, and then you'd accumulate those things. I've gone through all of them now since I've worked there, but there's different brands out there. Those are nice to have.
Like the white ones or the black ones or different ones.
Those like slip on. Like those spikies, they're those things.
Oh, you're talking about the
they're like the rubber
ice cleats.
Yeah. I'd put those
yak tracks
on anything.
Yep.
I think that those the soles on those are like the tread's pretty good now, but still you go zipping across some ice that's slick or windblown. Like I have done the same thing, dude.
That's the one thing I'm excited for with these Alaska Gear Co. ones is they look like they've got some pretty aggressive tread on them.
Yep.
Like they should be pretty good.
Yep.
They fixed the shape, so it just looks more like a normal boot now. It doesn't have the weird clown bubble at the end. And they fixed the cinch down issue with the tops of those boots. That was one issue I also had was when I would try to cinch them down around my leg, they wouldn't seal quite right every time, and I found myself needing to either, sometimes even wear gaiters with them just to keep snow from getting in there.
Oh, yeah.
And whether I had a faulty pair or not, I don't know. But I kind of gave up on them and moved over to Baffins. And that's just where I've lived for, the last long while.
Yeah, Baffins are good. They're just heavy.
They are heavy.
They're very heavy.
Yeah, they are heavy.
And something I live in the winter is mucklucks.
Yeah.
And military-issued mucklucks.
Yes.
We're not talking about fashionable. We're talking about the ugly green military cold weather issue mucklucks. And I've talked about that before, but that's what I rock.
Yeah.
I love those things. And then they go up high. You can cinch them down. They run really high compared to other footwear.
Yeah.
Talk
a little bit about, if you're willing to, the setup you do for your mucklucks.
Yeah, I think
I know you've broken it down on the
before.
show before, but that was like a year ago at this point. We've got a lot of new listeners.
So now you can buy all this replacement stuff for like these boots. When I did it, I kind of like pieced them together, finding stuff. I think I Value Village and like different stuff. But so you can order the Baffin inserts, and then you can kind of figure out. You can kind of order the whole shebang. So you can order the shells for the mucklucks online, and you can get a pretty steal deal on there.
Yeah.
And the other thing about those is that they have a gummy sole. They're not necessarily like, they don't have a ton of traction, but they're very gummy, which is nice.
And that's important.
And so
that's what makes good winter tires is the
yeah.
soft rubber. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yep. So. I've siped boots before, just like you would sipe a tire.
Yep.
I've taken boots, and I got a set that I run right in the beginning of the season that I've actually sat with a utility blade and patterned them out and literally put like tire tread on the bottom of them because they suck in that regard. But you can get these Baffin inserts offline, so you can just order all this stuff and you can just make your own boot. So what comes in there is like what comes in there like from the military issue style is it's like a wool insert. And they kind of fold over and they wear weird. They break in weird. So what I'll do is I'll take and buy those Baffin inserts and I'll cut the tongue out of them cleanly.
Yep.
And then what that allows that to do is close on the front. And because those mucklucks have a zipper that goes all the way up the shin.
Right.
Well, if you don't get that tongue out generally, like I got one buddy, he's a pretty big dude. I mean, he tried to get in those things and it looks like an anaconda trying to eat a water buffalo when he's got his leg in there. But but you get rid of that you get rid of that tongue and you can get those zipped up. Most of us would be able to do that, right? And then you can get the wool insoles, and some guys will do different layers. Like some guys will put 1 in there, 2 in there, but that gives you a little more space from that rubber. Kind of elevates you a little more from the cold ground. You don't want to get up too high because you can start rolling ankles and doing weird stuff.
Oh, sure.
And you're not as sure-footed. But I'll put like 1 of those on the bottom, then I'll slip that baffin insert in there. Another thing, those laces they come with are flat. So I'll pull those laces out and I'll put 550 cord and everything. It just seems to be, and I'll take snow seal. I'll snow seal those that 550 cord, and I'll snow seal the shell. And then you're pretty dialed in at that point, and they're really light. It's a nice light piece of footwear for. And then the other thing I like about that is some of these boots you can't get apart. So it's like once one thing goes bad, that's it. It's time for a new. And I don't know if that's engineered that way so that you buy more stuff. But
I'm sure there's a component of that.
It's nice. Like even if you don't have a boot dryer or anything, you can pull all these components apart. I've even stuffed like throwing that stuff in the dryer minus the shell.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put one of those in the dryer, especially if you're married. But start heating that rubber up and have that all over the inside of your dryer. But they're just.
But those inserts are fine. Typically.
Yeah, and then and one thing I'll say is that's almost a deplorable item too. The
disposable.
Disposable. Those shells they wear pretty good if you're using them. They'll start fraying. They're not built to last. They just work well for what we're talking about. And you can get those. I think if you buy them online, you can get them for like $35.
See, that's a steal, man.
Dude. So and you can find what size. Yeah, I'm not going to mention it. You can go try some stuff on, figure out what your size is, go online, and
different militaries have different versions, don't they? Like, isn't there like a Canadian military surplus version?
So,
that's
dude,
like white
Sawyer. I was over at Sawyer was helping me with that bear this last spring. Dude, he's got some freaking sick Canadian or like Arctic grade mucklucks, and they're white.
Yeah, I think I found those online one day, and I think I texted them to you.
I'm actually pretty stoked on trying those out too.
Yeah,
because one thing you think about if you say you get up on your butt on your seat there, you got your heels are on the ground. If you're sitting back, right now you've got black soles swinging around,
right,
and now that can really mess your. Most of the time, your feet are dug down in a layer of snow or whatever.
That's what I typically did last year. Yeah,
but I like the idea of all white shell.
Yeah, I remember last year you were running back from setting the call out, and I had my boots dug in the snow, and I had my overwhites on, and my white face mask on, and my gun was all whited out, and you're like, you got back, and you're like, oh, there you are.
Dude, I can see you. That's the best, man. That's when you know things are going well.
And I think I'd sat down and nestled in while you were over there. So you're like, oh, there you are.
Well, and a testament to that is all this camo stuff is kind of controversial, right? Like some people are like, I don't think it matters or whatever. But you and I, we danced with a couple Fox there for a while that were pretty close to us. And
weren't there were 3 on that set?
There were 3 on that set. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, man.
But I mean, like there's something to be said for nestling in, whether that's white or whatever that looks like at 50,000 feet, whatever. But you got to break your outline up. You got to break your gear up.
Yeah.
Shine and anything that stands out.
And you've broken that down on the show before, but just to kind of recap a little bit, like in the conditions you and I were in during that set, pure white was perfectly fine. It was a fresh snowfall. We were up against a perfectly white backdrop. We weren't in the brush. We weren't in trees. But like you also don't want to be sitting in a bush being pure white, because then you look like a ptarmigan sitting on a tree branch somewhere that you can spot from 100 yards away. Even though it's white, like it silhouettes against the background.
Yeah.
You want to have some kind of maybe a camo top.
And you can mitigate that a lot with positioning too, right?
Yeah.
Like not sitting in that bush, but you can't always fix that.
Exactly. Sometimes you just got what you got. And
Yeah.
I like, you've said it before on the show, but like having options, like keeping options with you. Like sometimes you just have pure old military surplus overwhites that can work great in certain situations.
Yep.
Maybe have a little bit of the snow camo pattern with some birch branches across it and everything like that.
And it doesn't need to be perfect.
Nope.
Because
just,
you're
just
not
to break
gonna,
up the silhouette a little
you're
bit.
never going to find perfect camo for that, because there again, you find something that works in one place. I got a onesie. I think I've hunted in it with you before.
Yeah.
It's a one-piece suit,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's got like an oak leaf pattern on it, and it's
Yep.
got some like tree branches that make no sense that I've never seen on a tree ever in my life. The thing makes no sense.
It's like a Dr. Seuss tree.
Oh yeah, totally. So like,
one fox, two fox, three fox.
yeah, but it breaks up pretty well.
Yeah.
And there's also a point where I got to stop wearing that suit. Like,
Mhm.
because it, like right now would be great where you've got minimal snow cover. You're kind of starting out. The snow's not deep.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes in reverse too, because I've seen where you start getting elevation. You start getting closer to the bottom of where like that darker foliage is sticking out of stuff. And I'm like, well, here I am away from the clean, like snow camel patterns that are primarily white, back into this onesie that's got all this dark breakup on it, right? Because I'm starting to get elevated now as we're starting to get snow coverage.
Right.
Because in some places, we get 6 feet of snow
Yeah.
certain places here.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
drifts, and you're tucked up against that dark timber again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's useful. And you just have, you cannot, like you said, sometimes you just got to work with what you got.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
in that case, we were working with what we had.
Yeah.
We didn't even really blend in well, technically what we were wearing didn't really match the environment, but it blended in well.
Yeah. Where we positioned ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah. It was, you just had to account for it.
And you can get selective about that. That was night.
Mm-hmm.
We had some good loom, so you can find shadows to kind of nestle in.
Yeah.
You can, but yeah, you don't need to have a giant bag of junk with you.
No.
Just a couple
few,
Yep.
just like I was even looking at, I have no idea if I'm going to pull the trigger on it or not yet, but there was like what do you call those? A poncho, like a snow camoed poncho.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that'd be kind of slick to just throw over the top. Like if I got my overwhites on, but maybe I'm up against some tree branches or something like that, almost keep that in my gunny sack just in case. Like just slap it on real quick, like throw it right over the top of me. If I wanted something that broke up a little bit of that pure white, just and then it also kind of breaks up your silhouette a little bit too. You don't have arms and stuff like that showing.
Well, we drive for work. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that listen that drive for work and travel, and I know tons of guys that's when they're if they're not in a company vehicle or whatever, they're not in a position to carry a firearm in their work vehicle, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys utilize that time to shoot predators right along the way, and it's nice to just be in your normal stuff and be able to throw something on in a jiff too to go put a stock on something.
Right.
I mean,
right.
those are all good opportunities to bring some fur home, right?
100%.
And I got stuff like that too. I got a little bag that I carry to just slip stuff over, and
Yep.
What
about barring the actual camouflage aspect of it, what's your go-to for staying warm out there? Because like you said, sometimes you're hiking, sometimes you're sitting long, you're hiking and sitting for a long time, so you don't want to sweat yourself out. Do you like?
I'm starting to get into like more of the synthetics now.
Yep.
And different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like lightweight. You're so restricted just trying to layer up.
Oh, dude, yeah, when you got multiple layers of Carhartts and wool this and
dude,
it's like hard to move.
Like the Michelin man, right? Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's another thing Carson's got me going on. We've been talking because he's just such a hunting clothing nerd. I love it. He and I started with what I started with, this cheap military issue stuff, which is great.
Yep.
And for what you're doing, that stuff's perfect.
Mhm.
If you want to go in one of the bins over there at the Army surplus store and grab some stuff, that's a great way to go. I did that for years.
Mhm.
Like everything else, I've kind of built my inventory on all my other stuff so I can kind of redirect finances to different areas of my equipment.
Mhm.
And now I'm starting to do it with clothing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I did before, I'm starting to get away from. Like, and I think that's a whole personal preference thing. How you want to dress, how you get
Personal preference and evolution of, where you're at. If what you have is what you got, then run it. But
Exactly.
when you start having the option to get the advanced clothing, why not?
And if finances are an issue, you're not skimping going into a surplus store and buying that stuff is awesome.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and it's
Those old marshmallow suits, man.
dude, I mean, and you could go to one of these surplus stores and just get completely outfitted if you time it right or you keep your eye on it.
Mm-hmm.
You go in there, they always have like the military overwhites. Some of that stuff, every once in a while, you see a really nice set in there.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to like not impulse buy. I'm like, I'm not going to wear this, but some of that stuff is it's high. It's pretty high quality, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatively cheap if you time it right, or you get on like Marketplace. Some of these guys that have bought this stuff and they don't need to return it. It's like personal gears, they'll PCS, and you can find that stuff.
Yep.
But I'm starting to get more into the synthetics, and stuff like that. Just because I take care of that stuff, and like you mentioned one time, buy a piece at a time.
Absolutely.
And I've kind of done that.
Or even just put away half of the money you need for it this check and half the money for it next check if you need to buy a big item. I do that all the time too.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for comfort.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, comfort not only being warm, but with that lighter gear, like you said, being the Michelin man out there when you got Carhartt this and a pair of bibs and a flannel coat under that and then, all these different layers, it's like you're sitting there and your arms are almost sitting out like you're a bodybuilder.
I've done it that way too.
You're just kind of waddling through the snow, like trying to get to where you're trying to go. And it's like that, to me, the fit of that newer, lighter clothing is one of the primary things I love about it. The extra material around the armpit, so you can raise your arm over your head and you can stretch out fully every direction you need to go.
My first season, I think I mentioned it before, is I called with a buddy of mine gave me an insulated Carhartt suit, kind of like that thing you got there.
Yep.
Not as cool. And it was blue. It was navy blue.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And my first season, and I killed a pile of critters wearing that.
Yep.
And I knew that I stood out like a sore thumb. And so I nestled in a little better, I cleaned up.
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
And that's what I had. And I think I had bunny boots, that big blue suit. That thing smelled like exhaust because I was running my old beater 3-banger Polaris running around on that thing. I mean, it's
Marlboro Reds and Old Spice.
2-stroke. But I mean, there's no, you don't have to do it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
It's the equipment you got or what you can do it with. I mean, don't not do it because everything that, you don't feel like you have all the right stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't miss out.
And you can always call it if you get cold.
Yeah.
If you get out there and you just brought out what you had and it doesn't end up being enough, guess what? You're not committed to staying there for 45 minutes. It's not like there's a timer that has to go off before you go back to the truck unless you're stubborn and that's just the way you want to play it. But like, if you're sitting there and it's 20 minutes in and you are literally freezing to the point where it's uncomfortable and dangerous for you to stay, like just get up and go and then better. Like then to go buy another coat or to buy some better bibs or something like that. But try it with what you got.
Like even with doing that with the blue onesie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had tons of critics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had guys that were just so angry about that. Like, what camp? Oh, and like not knowing, not really having any skin in the game and not knowing what I was doing and just smoking stuff left and right in that big blue puffy suit. Big old white Carhartt label on the chest, I mean,
reflective.
Yeah. Oh, guys are just, it wasn't reflective, but it may as well have been.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, you can get by with minimal equipment.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've got buddies that they do it pretty old school. Look, I mean, what did guys used to do? Think about the first guys that called, probably stunk like BO and campfire and the wood stove and whatever else and cooking smells and went out and killed stuff.
Yep. With mouth calls.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
all eyes on you at that point.
I think there's a point where we kind of look at technology has advanced and things are a little easier. And if you want to go rough it and get traditional, I mean,
yep.
you can get stinky and, hang out by the stove and see what you can accomplish. But
yeah,
there's easy ways to do things. And yeah, things are always getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Weapon systems are always getting better. It's what you can use what you got.
Yep. And, granted, with all of the equipment, you get the better rifles, you get the better clothing, you get the better call, all of that stuff. Sure, your success rate's going to climb, but using what you got, your success rate's not going to be zero. You got a better chance out there in a blue puffy suit with a cheap rifle that maybe isn't the best than you do sitting on the couch wishing you were out doing something.
Yep. And I think more, and that's the thing, more time invested in it. It's something's bound to happen.
Yeah.
It's like they say you hang out in a barber shop and you dig your hair, you hang out long enough, you're going to go get a haircut like everybody else, right? Like,
well, and
time.
And one season of doing will teach you more than a decade of reading forums.
Yep.
You can listen to podcasts and read and research and do everything you want to and be addicted to the planning, or you can just go do and figure it out as you go.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Just getting out.
Just get out there. Boots on ground.
And that's what I did when I started. I mean, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I didn't get any guidance. I didn't know. I think I asked a couple guys that were like, oh, I've done that once or twice. And I just started going out and I'm like, I am going to do this every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I got that first year, I got 4 to 5 days in a week of calling from November 1st to where I was driving to chase the seasons.
Yeah.
Till there was no more.
Mm-hmm.
And I hooked up.
Yeah.
It was very expensive. It was tiring.
And that's another great benefit to calling. If perfect example, Carson, right? His busy season is trapping season.
Yep.
Soon as fur gets prime, he's busy as all get out. He's flying out of state. He's going all over the place. He's coordinating things. He's working 14-hour days. That's his busy time.
Yep.
Right? He can't commit to a trap line because a trap line's a full-time job. You got to be out there to check it.
Great point.
And that's why he's transitioning more now to calling, right? If you are a busy guy, but you still want to get out and do something, you still want to get out and get on some fur, you want to not just be stagnant your whole winter. And let's say you've got 2 hours between work and when you got to pick your kids up for hockey, right? You can go make a stand.
Yep.
You don't have to be crazy out in the wilderness, 6-hour drive out of town. You don't have to be sitting in one spot for 2 hours at a time to get results.
It's low risk.
It's low risk. It's, you can fit it in where you can fit it in. If you have a busy lifestyle, you can still get out and get on some fur. And I think personally, that's one of the biggest advantages to it is you're not tied to one location like you are with a trap line. And you're not tied to that responsibility like you are with a trap line. Where if you can piecemeal together 5 sets a week between work and kids and life and all this other stuff, but hey, I'm going to be driving down to Delta to do this or whatever. And I'll just stop for 30 minutes along the way.
Yep.
Great. You just added a set to your week. Like, oh, I'm going to be going, like I said, 2 hours between the end of my work shift and when I got to pick up the kids for hockey. Great. Go do something.
Yeah, you start doing it like that, you'll be surprised at how many times you sit and call per week.
And you lift the limitations off your life.
And that's the thing too. I don't care who you are. If you go do this and you put time into it, you're gonna connect.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of time.
Yeah,
you're gonna connect.
Yep.
That's it's.
Yeah, them critters are hungry. They want what you're offering.
I used to watch all the down south stuff and. I could never find any information on calling here other than word of mouth. And dude, social media wasn't even big when I started calling.
Yeah.
And I'm I remember just being so shocked the first time I shot a lynx dude, it's doable.
Yeah.
Old beater rifle. Well,
yep. Do it to it. Well, you got anything else on your list you want to cover for today's episode? Or
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure we'll be revisiting this, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
We're going to be talking about this all winter. I mean, not all winter, but intermittently.
Hand warmers, gloves.
Yep.
I think hand warmers are an awesome thing to have on you.
Well, one aspect I'll say, I've gone to the range when it was much colder than I should have been at the range, and been out in the field when it was much colder than I expected it to be. Without hand warmers, your trigger finger don't work so good.
No.
And with too big of gloves, you can't get in on that trigger. Like that's actually huge. I'm glad you brought that up, because keeping your hands warm, keeping that dexterity in your hands, really helps with your trigger discipline.
That's kind of like the whole like tearing the boat apart while it's snowing.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, dude, she'll go to the store and it'll be like July and she'll bring me 2 boxes of hand warmers home.
Mm-hmm.
And there's alternatives to that too. You can get battery powered stuff. You can do whatever. There's all kinds of, dude, there's like, what are they, like heated socks now, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, we'll probably get into more of that down the road, but you can use a lot of that stuff too to heat your gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, and that's probably for another one, but
yep.
It's like you're saying, if you're warm, you're going to stay at the range longer. If you're warm, you're going to stay out in the field longer.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to snap shoot when you can actually feel the trigger with your finger and feel your finger and have control over those movements. Because, I don't know, like my hands get cold real easy and my fingers start to go numb really quick.
Probably from working out in the cold.
Yeah.
And having that happen 1,000 times.
Yeah. Yep. I've worked outside pretty much the entire time
That'll do it
I've lived here. And yeah, keeping your hands warm, keeping that dexterity, that's huge. So I like that you brought that up. But, well, guys, thanks for hanging in on this one with us. This is, we're all getting amped up for wintertime activities, predator hunting, trapping, all that good stuff. We'll be talking a lot about that in the next coming episodes. So for anybody that's looking to get into a lot of this stuff, stay busy this winter. Keep the wintertime blues at bay. You know, this is Alaska is one of those places where we have a lot of seasonal depression issues, and a lot of people have problems with, you know, keeping their chin up through those dark, cold months. And, you know, big thing that helps with that, you know, and especially for our military folks listening, is not just hiding away in your barracks room, not just hiding away in your apartment or your house or whatever. Like, get out, be active, whether that's trapping, predator hunting, anything. Keep yourself busy. Find a hobby.
Ice fishing.
Yeah, we'll have to have Maxwell back on.
Get into some of these meetings too. You don't have to always be in the field. Just go get with some of these organizations, and just as an excuse to get out of that lull.
Yep. Like, exactly.
Go meet other like-minded people, and
Yep. And, you know, plan for the next season. You know, if this isn't your gig, get motivated and plan out for the next bear season or the next summer, what you're going to do. You know, start nerding out on your boat, if you got one. Like, you know, that's like you're doing. You know, now is the season to prepare. So, you know, don't fall into those lulls, man. It's a hard time up here, but there's a lot to do at the same time. You just kind of got to be willing to suffer a little bit. So, but yeah, if you have any questions about what we talked about, feel free to go to thenorthernhunter.com and hit that contact button. That'll get any email you send into there goes directly to me and Chris. We can see those. So, if you have a question, feel free to reach out and ask the show. We've also got the Instagram. If you hit at the Northern Hunter or Facebook at the Northern Hunter, we try to respond to those as well. And here soon, by the time this episode comes out, I think I'm actually going to put our individual ats on the Instagram as well. So if they want to reach out to you directly, they can do that too. So, but you want to drop that real quick? Your at for Instagram?
Apex, Alaska.
Perfect. Yep. So feel free to reach out with any questions. We love helping people get out there during the winter months and getting things done. So, and yeah, be sure to hit the merch store while you're on the website if you feel so inclined. We've got some cool t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and all that, and love to see pictures of people rocking the logo. I've been getting a couple of pictures recently. It's always good to see, honestly, from around the country. We got somebody buy one in Florida the other day.
That's so cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, definitely help us out with the merch shop. And then we've also got our partners page with a lot of companies that have given us discount codes and
decided they believe in what we're doing. They have some great gear. We've got Stealthy Hunter. We've got Hammer Bullets. We've got Troy Sessions with the 60-inch club and his game bags and all of that good stuff. Game-changing game bags. Those things are awesome with the handles on them. Ooh, buddy, doesn't get better than that. So go ahead and give those guys some business. Use that discount code to get it for a little bit cheaper, and that helps us out too. So again, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Chris, for spending your Saturday over here.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Absolutely. And all you guys, until next week, get out there, get after it. Good luck. We'll see you there.